The woman everyone feared. The twin suns of planet Veros were setting, painting the sky orange and red. In the quiet alien village of Trinka, everyone rushed back to their homes, closing doors and windows. Children were pulled indoors. Shops were shut quickly. No one wanted to be outside when she passed by. Her name was Cirella. She was tall, with silver blue skin and long black hair that touched her waist. Her eyes were bright green, but not with joy, only pain and sadness. A small girl, no older than 5, walked beside her, holding her hand. The child looked hungry and tired, her tiny feet dragging through the dust. People whispered behind doors. "That's the cursed widow." Her husband died, then 3 others. Wherever she goes, someone dies. And her child? They say she's worse than the mother. Cirella heard them. She always did, but she said nothing. She had stopped crying years ago. That evening, she walked to the back of the market square where trash and broken goods were thrown. There, behind a half-broken stall, she sat on the cold stone ground with her daughter. The girl leaned against her, stomach growling softly. "I'm sorry," Cirella whispered. "I have nothing left to give you." The girl didn't complain. She just closed her eyes. At the other end of the village, a new face had arrived. A human, man named Jace. He was tall, with a dusty coat and a backpack. His ship had broken down 2 days ago, and he had come to Trinka to find parts and fuel. But all he found were closed minds and fearful eyes. No one would talk to him. No one would help. Humans bring trouble, an old alien vendor had told him. Still, Jace stayed. He camped outside the village just beyond the hill. He had a few supplies left and enough credits for maybe 1 meal. That night, while returning from the market with a stale piece of bread, he spotted them. The woman and the child. They were sitting near the garbage. The child's hands were wrapped around her belly. The woman just stared at the ground like she had given up on life. Jace stopped. Something inside him wouldn't let him walk past. He looked around. Other villagers were watching from shadows. They whispered, shaking their heads. One man shouted, "Stay away from her, human. She'll bring you death." Jace raised an eyebrow. "She looks half dead already," he muttered. Then he walked over. "Hey," he said, kneeling beside them. "You okay?" Cirella didn't answer. She looked up, shocked. Her eyes widened. No one had spoken to her in months. "Don't be afraid." "I'm not from here," Jace added. He pulled a water bottle from his bag and held it out. "You need this more than I do." Cirella hesitated. She looked at the bottle, then at her daughter. "Take it," he said softly. She took it. Her hands trembled. The child drank first, then gave it back to her mother. "You don't know what you're doing," Cirella said finally, her voice dry. "They think I'm cursed." Jace smiled slightly. "Well, lucky for you, I don't believe in curses." Behind them, someone threw a rock that hit the ground near Jace's feet. More voices shouted from a distance. "Leave her, human. If you want to live," Jace stood slowly. He looked back at the villagers, then at Cirella. "Come with me," he said. She blinked. "What?" "I have a small fire outside the village. Enough for you and the girl to get warm. And food, not much, but better than nothing." Cirella looked down at her daughter, who was now staring at Jace with wide, glowing eyes. "No one has helped us in years," Cirella said. Jace nodded. "That ends today." As he turned to lead the way, Cirella stood up and gently lifted her child. Her knees were weak. Her heart beat fast. She didn't know why this human had come, or why he wasn't afraid. But for the first time in many years, she felt a small spark of hope. Far behind, the villagers watched in silence. "Foolish human," one spat, but another older woman stared longer. Her hands trembled. "That child's eyes," she whispered. They glowed. He shared his fire. The fire crackled softly under the dark alien sky. The wind howled through the trees, cold and dry, whispering across the open hills beyond the village. Jace sat beside his small campfire, his coat wrapped tightly around him. The flames danced in his tired eyes. His hands were rough from fixing damaged ship parts all day. He had just one ration pack left, and a single decision still burning in his mind. He had invited her, the cursed widow, and her silent, hollow-eyed daughter. They were coming. Behind him he heard the soft footsteps, slow and unsure. He turned. There she was, holding the girl, her long dark hair blown by the wind. They looked like two shadows barely alive. "You made it," Jace said, offering a small smile. Cirella didn't speak. She looked at the fire like it was a miracle. The little girl reached toward it with both hands as if she wanted to hug the warmth. Jace quickly shifted, clearing a spot near the fire. "You can sit. It's safe here." Still cautious, Cirella slowly lowered herself and the child beside the flames. Her daughter curled into her lap, shivering. Jace opened his ration pack and split it in 3. It wasn't much, just dried protein strips and a nutrient biscuit. But when he handed the pieces to Cirella, her hands shook. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She finally whispered, "Why?" Jace looked at her, puzzled. "Because you needed help." "No one helps us," she said. "Not in years. Not after what happened." "I'm not from here," Jace replied gently. "And I don't judge people without knowing their story." Silence fell between them. Only the fire spoke. The girl fell asleep quickly, resting her head in her mother's lap. Cirella stared at her for a long time, then looked at the sky. "She used to smile," Cirella said softly, "before they called her cursed, before they stopped looking at us like we were people." Jace leaned forward. "What happened to her father?" Cirella hesitated. The firelight flickered across her face, showing pain too deep for words. "He died," she said simply. "Suddenly, no illness, no wound, just gone. The next day my uncle died. Then the healer, they blamed us, said we carry death. But that doesn't make sense," Jace said. "Things like that, they happen." "Not here," she replied. "They fear what they don't understand." The fire cracked louder. Sparks rose into the sky. "Maybe it's not a curse," Jace said, staring into the flames. "Maybe it's something else, something powerful. Something they couldn't control, so they called it evil." Cirella didn't respond, but her eyes slowly turned to him. She studied his face, the way he didn't flinch near her, how he looked, at her like a person, not a ghost. Then, suddenly, the girl woke with a soft gasp. She reached toward Jace's hand. A small scratch on his finger, one he hadn't noticed, was bleeding. Before he could react, the girl touched it, and the bleeding stopped. Instantly, Jace's eyes widened. The skin had healed, like the cut was never there. Cirella grabbed the girl's hand quickly, alarmed. "Don't do that," she whispered. But it was too late. Jace had seen. "She healed me," he said, stunned. "Your daughter, she has healing abilities?" Cirella looked away. "That's why they fear her." "But that's not a curse," Jace said. "That's a gift." "Not to them," Cirella replied. "They see power and they fear it. They think it brings death, but I think she only reacts to pain." Jace leaned closer to the fire. "Well, maybe it's time someone saw her for what she truly is." "And what's that?" Cirella asked quietly. "A miracle," Jace said. The word hung in the air. For the first time in a long while, something soft appeared on Cirella's face. A small smile. Not big, not strong, but real. It was the first sign of hope in years. Behind the hills, a pair of eyes watched from the shadows. Someone from the village had followed them. They saw the human, the cursed woman, and the child touch him. They saw the blood vanish, and they ran back to the village with fear burning in their chest. Whispers in the dark. The next morning, the village of Trinka was full of whispers. People spoke in hushed tones behind closed doors and market stalls. The news had spread fast. The cursed child healed a human. Some didn't believe it, others feared it. A few started locking their homes tighter than before, But the one who saw it with his own eyes? He didn't sleep at all. His name was Vel, a young scout from the outer rings of the village. He had followed the human out of curiosity, and what he saw near the campfire haunted him. The way the child touched the man's wound, and it closed like magic. To him, it was unnatural. "She's dangerous," Vel whispered to the elders that morning. "She didn't just heal him, she changed him." "What do you mean?" one old alien asked. "I saw something in his eyes afterward," Vel said. "Like a spark. Like her power had gone into him too." The elders grew silent. One of them, a hunched female named Alna, shook her head. "If that child truly carries the ancient blood, she must be removed. Or worse, things will follow." Meanwhile, far from the village, Jace had taken Sorella and her daughter deeper into the wild forest. He had moved his camp into a hidden area beneath the large moon-shaped trees, where purple vines fell like curtains. "I think we'll be safer here," he said, setting down his bag. Sorella looked around. The place was peaceful. Birds sang softly. In the canopy above, the air smelled clean. Her daughter chased a glowing beetle, laughing quietly for the first time in days. "She's smiling," Jace said with surprise. "Yes," Sorella replied, eyes full of emotion. "It's been so long." Jace watched the child closely. "What's her name?" Sorella paused. "Mireia." "It's beautiful," Jace said. "She was born during the night of stars. A time of light, but also fear." Jace nodded slowly. "That's when people started dying?" Sorella sat on a mossy rock and lowered her eyes. "Yes. But they never understood why. They only saw the deaths, not what led to them." "What did lead to them?" Jace asked gently. Sorella took a deep breath. "My husband, he was a good man, but one night he grew sick. I tried to save him. Mireia, just a baby, crawled to him and touched his chest. His pain ended instantly, but not the way I hoped." Jace frowned. "He died?" Sorella nodded. Peacefully, as if something took the pain and the life. Jace sat beside her. "Maybe Mireia didn't know how to control it. Maybe it wasn't her fault." "I know," Sorella whispered. "But they didn't care. 3 more villagers died later. Accidents maybe, illness, but I had already been marked the widow of death. That's what they call me now." Jace was quiet. He watched Mireia laugh as a bird landed near her. The bird had a broken wing. Mireia gently placed her hand over it. A moment passed, and the bird flapped both wings and flew. Jace's eyes widened. "Sorella," he said slowly, "do you know what your daughter truly is?" Sorella looked at him, puzzled. "What do you mean?" "She's more than just special. She's not a curse. She's a healer. Maybe the last of something ancient, something powerful." Suddenly, the laughter stopped. Mireia froze and turned toward the forest. "What is it?" Jace stood up. The girl pointed. From behind the trees, footsteps, then voices. There they are. 3 villagers stepped out, Vel among them. Their hands held stun rods and their faces were full of fear. "Step away from the girl, human," Vel growled. "We're taking her." Jace stepped in, front of Sorella and Mireia. "You're not taking anyone." "She's a danger to us all," Vel shouted. "You don't understand what she is." "I understand better than you," Jace said firmly. "She's a child. She's death," Vel spat. "She'll bring ruin." Before Vel could take a step, Mireia raised her hand. The ground beneath Vel cracked. He fell to his knees, unable to move. What is this?" Vel screamed. Mireia's eyes glowed softly, not red with rage, but golden, warm and calm. She wasn't angry. She was protecting. Then Sorella moved between them. "Enough," she said, her voice steady. "We ran from fear for too long. No more." Jace looked at her with quiet respect. Vel and the others turned and fled, their minds shaken. The whispers they would spread next would be louder, more dangerous, but something had changed. Mireia had chosen to protect, and her power was growing. The truth about her curse. The forest was silent again, but not calm. After the villagers ran away, a heavy feeling hung in the air. Cirella sat beside a small tree, her arms around Mireia, holding her close. The child had fallen asleep, her head against her mother's chest, peaceful, but her power still pulsed in the air like heat from a hidden flame. Jace crouched by the fire he had just rekindled. His hands shook slightly as he poured water into a small metal cup. He had seen many strange things across the galaxy, but never a child who could command the earth with her will. "She protected me," he said aloud, more to himself than anyone else. "Yes," Cirella whispered. "She does that, even when it hurts her." Jace looked at the girl. She didn't look afraid. "She was," Cirella said. "She always is, but she hides it. For me." Jace sat down across from her, firelight dancing between them. "Tell me everything, I want to understand." Cirella stayed quiet for a moment. Then slowly she began. "My people once believed in the blood of the ancients, a rare gift that runs through certain bloodlines, a gift that heals, or destroys." She looked at Mireia's sleeping face. "They say it disappeared hundreds of years ago, that it was too dangerous to exist, but my grandmother used to tell stories. She said it still lived, hidden in silence, passed from mother to daughter." "And now it's in Mireia?" Jace asked. Cirella nodded. "She didn't ask for it. She doesn't fully control it. When she was born, strange things began happening around us. Plants grew faster, animals followed her. My husband saw it and wanted to train her. He believed she was a weapon for peace. But he was impatient." Her voice cracked slightly. "He tried to force her powers out. He put her in pain, thought pressure would unlock her gift." Jace clenched his jaw. "What happened?" Cirella's eyes filled with tears, but none fell. "One night she cried out while he held her too tight, and then he stopped breathing. She didn't mean to. She just reacted." Jace leaned forward, voice low. "That wasn't her fault." "I know," Cirella said. "But the others didn't care. They saw him dead, and her eyes glowing, and they judged us both." She looked at Jace. "They told me to leave, called me cursed, said my blood was dangerous. I ran with Mireia, before they could take her. Ever since then, we've lived in shadows." Jace stared into the fire. The truth was worse and sadder than he had imagined. "So the curse, it's just fear," he muttered. Cirella nodded. "Fear of power. Fear of difference." He looked at her seriously. "You know what I see? I see a mother who protected her daughter when the world turned against her. I see a little girl who can bring life with a touch. She can bring death too," Cirella whispered. "So can any living thing," Jace replied. "But it's the choice that matters." Suddenly Mireia stirred. Her glowing eyes opened. She looked at Jace, then reached out and gently placed her hand over his chest, right above his heart. Warmth filled his body like sunlight. He gasped softly, breath catching. "I feel strong," he said, stunned. Mireia smiled for just a second, then fell asleep again, exhausted. "She shares life," Cirella said, "but it drains her. She's just a child." Jace stood slowly, feeling energy rush through his body. "Then she needs to be protected." He looked around the camp. "They'll come back, won't they?" he asked. Cirella nodded. "Vel is afraid now. Fear makes people desperate." "Then we prepare," Jace said firmly. "If they come, they'll see who's cursed and who's chosen." For the first time, Cirella stood tall. "No more running?" Jace shook his head. "Not anymore." That night, as the wind moved through the trees, something shifted in the hearts of all three. The fire burned stronger, and the stars above shone brighter, as if watching over a mother, her gifted child, and the human who dared to stay. But in the shadows beyond the forest, New plans were already being made. A group of villagers had gathered. They were no longer just afraid. They were ready to fight. The child's hidden power. The forest had changed. It was still full of strange glowing plants and quiet winds, but now the ground felt alive, like it was breathing with them. Mireia, the child once feared by all, now walked barefoot through the soft moss. She didn't speak much. She didn't play like other children. But wherever she stepped, flowers opened, even when there was no sunlight. Jace watched her from a short distance, still amazed. He had seen many planets. He had touched the edge of space storms, survived asteroid fields, and once faced a pirate, with 3 arms and no mercy. But nothing compared to this girl. She was 5 years old and she was changing everything. Cirella had grown quieter in the last few days. Her sharp eyes watched the trees carefully. She knew the villagers would return. Fear was like fire. It spreads fast and burns everything in its path. She sat with Jace near the fire again. She talks to the forest, Cirella whispered. Jace raised an eyebrow. How do you mean? She hums sometimes, and when she does, I've seen the wind shift. The trees lean closer. Even the animals pause to listen. As if to prove it, Mireia sat nearby with her hand on a tree root. She closed her eyes and began to hum a soft, strange melody. Birds flew down to perch near her. A wounded fox limped out of the bushes and curled beside her without fear. The leaves above rustled even though the wind had stopped. Jace stared, speechless. She's not just a healer, he said slowly. She's connected to the planet. She is the planet, Cirella replied. Her blood, it sings with ancient power, the kind the elders buried long ago. Jace stood. We can't hide this forever. No, Cirella agreed. But what happens when they try to take her? Jace looked at his laser tool, his only weapon, and then at the small girl still humming by the tree. She's stronger than she looks, he said. That night, Mireia had a dream. In her dream, fire rained from the sky and her mother cried. Jace lay on the ground, wounded, and a group of men from the village marched toward her with ropes, nets, and weapons. She woke up screaming. Cirella rushed to her side, holding her close. It's okay, she whispered. It's just a dream. But Mireia shook her head, her tiny hands glowing faintly. No, it's soon. Jace, who had been keeping watch near the trees, heard everything. He stood, alert now. What did she see? He asked. Cirella looked up at him. She saw them coming. By the next morning, Mireia had changed. She no longer looked like a weak, cursed child. Her eyes glowed constantly now, not from fear, but from awareness. She seemed to sense every rock, every breeze, every heartbeat nearby. Jace built traps. Nothing deadly, just barriers, noisemakers, and signals in case someone approached. But Mireia, she did more. She raised stones with her hands. She whispered. To the ground and roots began to move. A circle of protection grew around their camp, half magic, half nature. She's creating a shield, Jace said in awe. Yes, Cirella said, and she's never been taught how. It's like the earth itself is teaching her. At noon, something strange happened. A giant beast, an Oru beast, entered the forest. 8 legs, thick skin, sharp horns. It was blind but deadly. It could crush metal with its jaw. It walked straight toward their camp. Jace grabbed his tool. Get behind me! But Mireia stepped forward. Wait! Cirella cried. The girl walked up to the beast, her hand stretched out. Jace could hardly breathe. The beast roared once, then stopped. Its body trembled, and then it knelt, like it was bowing. It bowed to Mireia, and then it turned around and walked away, silent as the stars. Jace dropped his tool. She's not cursed, he whispered. She's royalty. No, Cirella said, her voice trembling. She's something older than royalty. Suddenly they all froze. In the distance, drums, footsteps, shouts. The villagers were coming, and they weren't coming to talk. They tried to take her. The air grew colder before the villagers arrived. The birds stopped singing. The glowing vines around the trees dimmed. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Jace stood at the edge of the camp, staring into the thick forest. He could hear them, many feet moving fast, breaking twigs and crunching leaves. Voices barked commands, weapons clinked, torches burned through the shadows like angry stars. "They're close," Jace said. Cirella didn't move. She stood behind him, holding Mireia tightly in her arms. The child's eyes were glowing again, but now her small body trembled. "She knows what they want," Cirella whispered. "They don't fear her curse anymore, now they want to use her." Vel led the group of villagers, 15 strong. They had rope nets, energy sticks, and mine collars used for controlling wild beasts. Their faces were painted with fear and old belief, but their eyes were full of greed. Vel's voice echoed through the trees. "You have one chance, human. Hand over the child." Jace stepped forward. "She's not yours." "She belongs to the planet," Vel shouted. "You don't know what she is." "I know she's 5 years old and scared," Jace snapped. "That's enough for me to protect her." Behind him, Mireia slowly slid from her mother's arms and walked forward. Her bare feet touched the dirt. Her hands rose slowly, not in anger, but in sadness. "Stop," she said, her voice quiet but strong. "Go back." Vel laughed. "You think we'll listen to a child?" Suddenly, the ground under his feet shook. Tree roots burst through the soil like snakes, wrapping around his legs and lifting him into the air. The villagers gasped, stepping back. Mireia's eyes turned bright gold. "I said, go back." The other villagers raised their weapons. "No!" Vel shouted from above. "Take her, now!" They ran forward, but the earth moved with Mireia. The ground rose like waves. Thorned vines cracked through the soil, forming a barrier. A few villagers were thrown back. Others screamed as they tripped and fell into thick mud that swallowed their weapons. Jace grabbed his tool and ran to protect Mireia, but the vines parted for him. They didn't hurt him. They trusted him. He reached her side. "Mireia," he said, kneeling. "You have to stop. This will hurt you." Her voice trembled. "I don't want to fight, but I can't let them take Mama." Suddenly, one villager slipped past the vines from the side. He ran toward Cirella, grabbing her arm roughly. She screamed. Jace turned too late, but Mireia turned in time. A burst of golden energy shot from her body. The man flew backward, his armor cracking, landing hard against a tree. He didn't get back up. Silence. Vel, still hanging from the roots, stared down in terror. "Demon! She's a demon!" "No," Cirella said, stepping forward at last, voice calm but strong. "She's the one your ancestors feared and protected. The blood of the earth, the soul of this world." Jace looked up. "She's more than power. She's life itself." The vines lowered Vel to the ground. He crawled backward, dropping his weapon. The remaining villagers didn't fight. They didn't even speak. They just ran. Ran from a child who had never wanted to hurt anyone, but would destroy the world if it meant saving her mother. As the forest grew quiet again, Mireia fell into Jace's arms, weak. "She's burning," he said. "Her skin's hot." "She used too much," Cirella said, running to them. They wrapped her in a blanket, laid her near the fire. Jace placed his hand gently on her forehead. "She needs rest." Cirella nodded. Her hands trembled. "She protected me again," she said. "Again and again she gives more than she should." Jace looked into the fire, voice low. "We can't stay here. They'll come back with more. With machines." Cirella turned toward the sky. "Then we take her somewhere no fear can follow." Jace nodded. "I'll fix my ship. I have parts hidden in the cliffs. We leave at dawn," Cirella said, "before the forest cries again." But even as they spoke, far away, others were watching. And now, the child had a name known beyond the village. The girl who commands the earth, chosen by the curse. The sky was still dark when Jace packed the last supplies into his small scout ship. Mist floated through the trees. The forest was silent, as if even nature was waiting to see what would happen next. Inside the shelter of a large twisted root, Mireia slept wrapped in her mother's arms. Her face was pale. Her glow, usually golden and warm, had faded to a soft flicker. She had given too much of herself. Cirella brushed the child's hair, whispering lullabies from a forgotten language. "She's not waking," Jay said quietly as he stepped beside them. "Is she?" "No," Cirella answered softly. "But she's still here. I can feel her. Just very weak. Her spirit is resting." Jace knelt beside them. "We need to leave. Before the villagers come back. If they bring tech or soldiers, they won't come," Cirella said. "They've seen enough, but others will hear, those who hunt power and take what they fear." She looked up at Jace, her voice steady now. "You saved us. You believed in her when no one else did." "Why?" Jace gave a small smile. "Because I've been unwanted before. I know how it feels when people look at you like you don't belong. I know what it means when someone finally says, 'You matter.'" Tears touched Cirella's eyes, but she didn't look away this time. "She was called a curse," she whispered. "But maybe it was never about punishment." Jace nodded. Maybe it was a sign, a warning, or a calling. Cirella looked down at her child. A curse doesn't choose, but Mireia chose. Hours later, the sun broke through the mist. They carried Mireia gently to the ship. As the engines powered on, the trees behind them swayed, not with wind, but with emotion. Birds circled above. Even the vines that once protected them bowed low. The forest was saying goodbye, but as the ship lifted, something happened. Mireia opened her eyes. Just barely. "Are we leaving?" she asked, voice tiny. "Yes, love," Cirella said, holding her tightly. "We're going somewhere safe now." Mireia reached out her small hand. She placed it on the control panel. Jace watched in shock as symbols lit up. Symbols, not from Earth, not from Veros, but something far older. The ship's system hummed with power. The engines grew stronger. "She's merging with the ship," Jace whispered. "Helping us." Mireia smiled faintly. "We go where we're needed." The stars opened before them. They didn't know where they were heading. Only that they could no longer hide. They were no longer three outcasts. They were a family, with a gift. And far below, the village of Trinka began to change. Crops bloomed stronger than ever. Sick children woke with color in their cheeks. Even the rivers ran cleaner. The curse had left, and life had returned. A year passed. In the distant sector of Elyon 9, a mining colony suffered from a strange sickness. Children were dying. Machines failed. The planet's core was unstable. Then a ship arrived. Small, old, nearly forgotten. A human stepped out first. Beside him, a woman with glowing green eyes. And between them, a little girl barefoot in the dust. She knelt and placed her hand on the ground. The earth shook, but gently, and the dying colony came back to life. They say she was born cursed, but only one man ever saw the truth. She wasn't a curse. She was a second chance for a world that forgot how to care.